I'm here with Nick Collins. He's President Americas for Telstra. He's been in the role since about September of 2018, and we're going to be talking about the role that Telstra US plays in the international market. Nick, we just learned a little bit about your mandate here in the U.S., and one of your main goals is to bridge the gap between U.S. companies and Asia. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Our role here in the United States is really to work with those American organizations that are looking to tap into markets across Asia, and clearly they are significant market opportunities for many organizations here in the United States.
Yeah, and you're just coming off of a 6-year stint working for Telstra in Asian markets, in Singapore and Hong Kong. What do you think American companies have misunderstandings around in Asia, and how can Telstra help?
Yeah, look, I think it's certainly when you're on the ground in Asia, it's sometimes easy to think of Asia as just one homogenous continent. And of course, it's far from. Asia is a very diverse set of countries. There's different regulatory regimes across these markets, and obviously different sizes and languages and cultures all add to this mosaic of what Asia looks like. So for us, we work with a lot of companies in terms of bringing the expertise that we have in Asia. That is our focus. So having people on the ground, having operated in Asia for just over 70 years, we find that is helpful to organizations as they're thinking about entering parts of Asia or expanding across Asia. And clearly, there's markets like Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia, which are very familiar. But increasingly as well, there's markets like China, Korea, Taiwan, parts of India, where companies are looking to do more.
Telstra has been very public about the fact that Huawei is not present in any of your network. And yet that vendor is something like 25-30% of all, in all networks. When we're talking about the future, building out 5G networks, what does it look like to not use some of these Chinese vendors? And I know you have to work in the law of the land. So what does it look like when you're not using any of those vendors in your networks?
Look, I think for us is that there's always vendor choices available in that ecosystem, and we work with a number of vendors. So certainly as we're thinking about our 5G deployment in Australia, and we already have 200 base stations live on 5G, our vendor ecosystem there is based on Ericsson technology and others. And for us, as a carrier, yes, you're right, we operate by the rules of the land, and the government and the national security agencies that we operate with, will guide us on that journey. But it hasn't held us back, So certainly we've got the 200 sites live in Australia. We'll be the first to market in Australia with 5G. We'll have the first 5G device available in the coming months. So I think, for us, we're excited about 5G. We're very optimistic that both consumers and business will receive it well. And we're doing a lot in the market around maintaining what we think is our market-leading position around wireless in Australia.
Given the tensions between the U.S. and Asia right now, what is the ideal outcome for Telstra Americas? Let's say we sat down a year from now, what would be the ideal outcome?
The economic bridge between this region and Asia is as strong as it's ever been. So despite the geopolitics, businesses are still expanding into parts of Asia, still expanding into places like China. And we can see that on our networks. Our network has doubled in capacity over the last 2 years. That doesn't happen if good commerce is not happening. So the fact we continue to invest in new subsea cable capacity between the US and Asia, I think is testament just to the opportunity that exists in those markets. And I think most business will overcome some of the short-term challenges that we've got for longer-term gains in those markets.
A lot of the business that you're doing here and the legacy of Telstra is in working in media entertainment space. One of the questions, and we discussed this earlier, is that a lot of companies that are media companies are doing a direct-to-consumer OTT play. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? How does Telstra approach that market environment where you have these media companies doing direct-to-consumer OTT plays.
OTT is just one example. It's also gaming. The surge in online gaming and what new technologies like virtual reality is going to bring into this mix is exciting, and it's going to be transformative technologies in terms of how we as a network company have to adapt and continue to invest to grow our networks to support that.
You've been recognized as an executive, as someone who is focused on diversity, inclusion, and work-life balance. In the US, how can companies here do better on each of those points?
Look, I think for me, yeah, absolutely. It's something I'm particularly passionate about. And for me, it's making sure it's a very visible topic at the executive level of the organization. For me, this is a top-down set of behaviors that you have to demonstrate. So living the values around diversity and inclusion, I think talking about it in staff forums is really important, but also being very visible and engaged in these conversations. So, diversity and inclusion is a very broad topic. So we make sure at Telstra we cover its entirety. And look, for me, I'm an out executive in this organization. And, I think from my early days in my career, when you're starting out, sometimes it's hard to be what you can't see.
Well, Nick, it was great to meet you.
Thank you.
I wish you a
Appreciate
lot
it.
of success in the new role, and hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up
I would love that.
in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.